All right, good afternoon, everybody. It is Jay again. And what to do if we run out of water. And not saying that we are running out of water here in the valley, but we are definitely getting low in some areas of the valley. And this is something that we should probably be thinking about and be talking about anyway. And that is water usage. And especially if we're going to be adding a bunch of these fruit trees to the valley, what happens if we run low on water and we get put on water restrictions? And the best way to think about this, guys, is to kind of get yourself set up that way in the beginning, in the very, very beginning. Just sort of think about that in the beginning. I mean, you do live in the desert, so it's very low on water, and it's very low on water all the time. So if you plan your yard and you set up your watering system and your fruit trees and you get them all in and get them all planted well, then I'm going to go over how to really cut down the water usage on your plants and still get some amazing fruit set. Oh my gosh, look at this apium. Speaking of fruit set, walking by this thing is just absolutely loaded full of fruit. So water. I always tell you guys to water more. And it's like, well, if we're running out of water, or if we need to cut back on water, or since we are in the desert, water is low anyway. So what are some of the things that we can do? And how much water am I using here in my yard on my plants to keep my fruit trees alive and keep everything looking good? Because I'm sure that's a question a lot of you guys have, is how much water am I watering here, and how much are you going to have to water in order to get sort of the same results and keep a yard full of fruit like I do? So there are several little tips that I'm going to go over to definitely keep the water down for you guys and still get the amount of production that I get around this property. Because man, I tell you what, it is green. So the first tip I'm going to share with you guys is shade. So you cannot get enough shade. None of you have enough shade. I don't have enough shade, so you don't have enough either, okay? So there should be basically trees everywhere that cover the whole entire property. Now, for the most part, they do, except for out here in this nursery area, because these are customer trees that sort of need to be beat up by the full sun, right? And man, look how much these have grown out here. You can kind of look back on previous videos and see that this stuff is just, wow. It's all taller than me already. Look at this. But shade. You cannot get enough shade, basically. So that's tip number one, is not enough trees are in the valley, basically. Once you get this cooling effect, like from this big mulberry, look how much shade that provides. So once the water comes on back here and it cools this down, it just stays permanently cool back here. Right? So then the second tip I'm going to share with you guys to keep the water down is mulch. And that's another thing that you guys don't have enough of. And I understand that because a lot of you like to keep your yard a lot cleaner. But having this mulch down here, I tell you what, keeps this ground a lot cooler. We've got these leaves down here. I'm going to kind of dig down in here a little bit, kind of show you guys the layers that kind of develops. So you've got your leaf layer that kind of builds up out here, right? Then you've got that secondary layer that's starting to kind of rot down in here, right below that. And then as you pull back more, you're going to see all the worm castings. On the ground. And then as you dig down in there, you're going to see that it's just nice and cool and wet, and you can just dig for ages with your hand, which you can't really do that anywhere else here in Arizona. And man, I swear, everywhere you dig, I mean, look at this, just everywhere you dig, there's worms. And what they're doing is they're decomposing this layer. Otherwise, it's going to sit here forever and never decompose. It's decomposing all this layer, and it's also turning that top layer into this bottom layer. I mean, look at this. Just absolutely beautiful soil. I mean, you couldn't ask for this in Arizona. I mean, this is like Illinois soil, right? So all this soil has been processed. Beautiful stuff. Drains wonderfully. Put those guys back. Put this back over. So mulch is your second thing that's going to keep all these plants cool. Okay, so you've got the trees up above, which is your first tip, your shade. Then you've got your mulch layer down here on the ground, which is your second tip. And then the third tip is going to be the amount of filler plants that you have in here. So as you look through here, you can see that there are trees that are very, very close to each other, right? So you've got, say, these, wow, these beautiful mangoes, you know, right next to this dragon fruit trellis, right next to, I mean, these plants are just packed in here. Oh. Kind of go through here a little bit and you guys can see the density here. So we're going to call that density. And the density is what's going to give you your humidity. So having all these plants this close together like this is how you keep your humidity actually in. So that's why it kind of stays like a little rainforest back here. And it never really dries up. Look at all those peanut butter fruit. Wow. That is quite amazing. Right next to this chocolate pudding fruit. Right next to more mangoes. And man, look at these mangoes. Like, you want mangoes in Phoenix. Like, it really doesn't get any better than this. This thing is just soaked. It's toppling over with mangoes. So density. Density. Oh, look at those pretty nectarines. Right next to these mangoes. I mean, it's a food forest. It's just a virtual rain food forest. Look at all these grapes. Just rows and rows of these things. And you see how nice and thick and dark it is back here. I mean, it kind of feels like Jurassic Park back here with all some of the plants back here. There's mangoes everywhere this year. All right, guys, so now I am going, if you made it to the end of this video, so now I'm going to show you the water bill, and I am going to show you the breakdown on how I have figured out how to get your plants watered for 10 cents a month. So let's go over this real quick. I'm going to show you my water bill here, and of course I have cut off some of the account information because obviously I don't want that seen, but I am going to kind of break this down for you so you can also read your water bill and know exactly what you're using and how much you're using for yourself and how much you're using for the plant. So let me break this down for you and show you how this sort of works, okay? So here is my water bill, and this is for May. And May is probably my heaviest usage month because we've got all this fruit on the trees coming on, right? So if you look at the total here, we've got $258.08, right? That's the water bill for this month of May, right? But if you look over here, let's read the bill. So $209.54 is the actual water usage. So that's how much water that I use. So that's the number we're going to work with. The first number there, the $28.52 for the water service charge meter, that's just to have the meter. So you can see right there at the end the meter number, the 288, and then of course below it the 288 water system charge. That $28.52 is there every month whether you use any water or not. That's just for the state of Arizona to say, hey, you got a meter. Okay, so that doesn't count. I'm going to take that out of this equation. Yes, you do have to pay it, and I realize it's part of the bill, okay? But I'm taking it out as part of this water usage equation because we want to try to figure out exactly what we're using here, okay? So then we've got taxes. We've got total taxes there of $20, okay? So $20 and $30 basically is $50. So right off the top there is $50. So we're going to take that off of the 258.08. Okay, so that's the number we're going to be sort of starting with. We're going to take that 50 off, and we're going to start with 210. That's going to be our number that we're going to start with, is the water usage, the 209.54. I'm going to round that up to 210, let's call it. So we've got a nice even number to start with. Now, there are 4 adults on this property. There are 2 full-size houses on this property, okay? So the way I've got this factored in is I've got it factored into every human on the property, let's call it. They use about $1 of water per day, guys, and that's between your showers and your laundry and brushing your teeth and cooking your food and pets and whatever else. $1 a day. I think that that's reasonable for one human's worth of usage in Arizona per day. $1 a day, okay? So $30 is what an average human would use in Arizona, is what I've got factored in. If you think that that's a bad number, go ahead and comment below, but I think that that's pretty good, $1 a day, okay? So you've got $30 worth of usage. You got 4 people, so you're now at $120. So if you take the $210 and you subtract the $120 from the people, now you're left with $90 a month on the plants, because that's what else is on this property, is the plants. So $90 a month is what I'm figuring in as my water usage for my food forest and my plants and my fruit trees. So if we take that $90, and I have 1,000 fruit trees here now. So if we take the $90 and we divide that by 1,000, now we're at 9 cents a month per tree. So I'm going to round that up a penny. I'm going to give that another penny up just in case. We'll throw in some taxes there. So now we're at 10 cents a month. So 10 cents a month is what is keeping all of these plants alive and giving me the amount of fruit that they're giving me. So what is the trick here? What is the trick to getting that low of water usage for this many plants? Okay, and I'll tell you guys exactly what it is. I'll tell you, it's about the water distribution. It's about how I've got the water distributed over this many plants. So as far as the nursery goes, the nursery area, that area is set up completely on nursery lines. So basically what this is, and you can translate this to your yard if you would like, is this is just normal 5/8 poly tubing. This is 1/8 inch line. And then I've got emitters in here. These are called spitter emitters. And what these do is these spray a good sized area inside the pot. Well, these also work, of course, in the yard if you want to do it that way. In fact, the way I've got them sort of set up over here is I've got those emitters all going into pots, and then I've got pots sitting around trees. So when the water comes on, it's watering not only this plant, but it's watering the plant below it, right? So now you're kind of killing 2 birds with 1 stone. Also, I've adapted all these plants to low water usage. So every one of these plants has gotten or has been weaned on very low water usage, especially the nursery plants, the ones that are for sale for the customers. So these get 5 minutes every other day, which is not very much, but it's enough to keep these giant pots wet. That's why I've got them in these giant containers. It's not just because I like to move around giant containers. It's because of the water conservation that I'm able to use by doing it this way. By having them in these big pots, guys, it doesn't dry out very often, and so I'm not having to water every day like other places do. This way, I'm only having to water 5 minutes every other day, and that pot is so big with so much soil in it that it just stays indefinitely wet or moist down in there, right? So how are we able to do that and not be able to rot the roots out on the tree? And that is all about having the correct soil in there now, right? So I put the correct soil in all these pots too. So let's put it this way, it's a system, and it's a system that works together. And if you don't get the system or little parts of it, then you're not going to get the whole thing. There's reasons why I do things the way that I do them, and have made improvements over other places, let's call it, because there's just smarter, better ways to do things if you sit down and think about them. Now, I've thought about this water conservation thing for a long time. I'll tell you, for a very long time. In fact, when I bought my home 10 years ago, I had an option to get either a house here on city water, or I could have got something that was on flood irrigation. Now, if you don't know what flood irrigation is and you live here in the valley, that is a way in which some yards get a ton of water, a ton of flood water that comes in and irrigates the yard, right? Well, there's not very many of us that have that, and it's sort of like it's a luxury item here in Arizona, let's call it. Okay, so having that flood irrigation, those homes start at, you know, probably $400,000 or more now. So most of us have, let's call it an average city home with an average city lot, and we are reliant on the hose water, right? So I wanted to set this place up as though the average person here in Arizona was going to do that. The average person's not going to have a huge lot. The average person's not going to have flood irrigation. The average person's not going to have shade trees already established, right? So I bought this place as a blank canvas, and I wanted to do it as though the average person was going to do it. Everything that they would do. I don't put a filter on the hose. I don't do any of that stuff extra. In fact, I wanted to come up with the most simple way to do this. And it was coming up with good soil, especially to get these things started off right, basically. And then a system of weaning my trees or my nursery plants onto very low water usage and adapting them here to Phoenix. So as soon as you plant a tree like this, it doesn't fry in the sun because it's already been adapted to the valley and the full sun above it. Cloudy today, that's why I'm doing this video, because I can actually film things and be able to see them. The glare is so heavy here, guys, in Arizona. So yeah, I wanted to set this up like the average person did or would, right? And having a huge water bill is not that feasible, and not very many people are going to agree with something like that, especially when you're in Arizona and people are going to want to cut down on water and may start to kind of get mad at people that are doing something like this, but not realizing that we're actually using far less water than they are, and we're getting better results. And the fact that I don't use my air conditioner anymore on my house. I took it off. It is now gone. And to say that in Arizona is pretty awesome. The house stays 78 degrees inside all the time because of the amount of trees that are in and around the house. Everything stays nice and cool. I mean, look how nice and green and productive everything is, guys, on that low of amount of water usage. So you got to think smart, guys, and you got to think ahead of the curve, way ahead of the curve, because I knew this was coming, and if it comes, it comes, and if the water restrictions don't, you should still think about it anyway and figure out a way to get all your plants on this low of water usage. And one more thing too is by having this water distributed through those lines, I am also now able to water 96 plants at one time. So instead of having the hose on where you water one and you come down here and you water this one, 5 minutes later you water this one, instead of walking this whole line, this entire line gets watered off of one line, as does this side here. And then I'll kind of show you up here. I've got just a separate line that runs up here. But it's about water distribution. It's about soil. It's about mulch. It's about shade. It's about proximity. Talk about proximity. See how close all these are? Why do you think they're doing so good? Look at this chiku. Right out here in the afternoon sun. Pomelos. I mean, pomelos are hard enough to grow. Right? Look how big these leaves are. Big, beautiful leaves. So proximity is very, very, very important. Having things very close together. And shade. You can never have enough. All right, guys. So that is it for this one. I just kind of wanted to show you guys that and sort of break down the bill and break down my justification of the bill or how I see it. I mean, maybe you guys see it a different way, but still, that's still pretty cheap, I would say, for the amount of production that I am getting on all these plants and the fact that I am fed all year long. Oh my gosh, look at those figs. I got to come around real quick and get a shot of these figs. Lemons. Oh yeah, they are coming on. Look at this. It's gonna be Fig City around here this year. All right, guys, that is it. Thank you for watching. Please leave any comments below, and I hope this helps maybe ease some people's minds as far as if they're wanting to do something like this. And I'm kind of actually hoping like somebody in the upper state of Arizona here sees this video and puts me on the water conservation board, because I think I could really do some justice here for the valley as far as getting it cool and keeping the temperatures down and using low water and also feeding basically everyone here in Arizona. All right, guys, so if you made it to the end of that video, thank you for watching. And we'll just end it here with a couple of giant mangoes, I guess. Wow. And they're still babies. Thanks for watching, guys.